Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I am Renee Allen, the host of this podcast. And usually I say I'm excited to be here, but I don't know why. Today has been really hard to come up here and record this episode. So instead of recording the next episode, which was going to be the second part of why it's difficult or hard to process information, follow instructions, and all of that, I'm going to talk about working through fear and what to do when fear or anxiety, it might not feel like fear, when that comes up. Because for some reason, that's what's been happening to me today. And I don't know why. So I've tried all my yoga things. I didn't teach yoga today. And I did a few of my yoga things that I do on my own, but I thought I really need to work with someone else. And there's a man that I've taken breathing workshops with before, and I've read his books, listened to his audiobooks. His voice is super soothing. So I even tried that, and it helped a little bit. But while I was doing it, in the part where I was really relaxing at the end, I was just recognizing what I'm feeling is fear inside of my whole lung heart area, like it was coming inward. And I'm sorry if this is loud on the microphone. I moved the microphone closer to my body. I'm actually sitting by the couch, if you haven't noticed, because I realized that in order to get myself going here, that it would be helpful if I just did whatever I could to be comfortable. And honestly, when I'm sitting up and recording the podcast, either on audio or on video, I'm not really comfortable sitting in a chair for very long. And that may be my hyperactive part of ADHD, but I just feel a little more tense. And if I'm sitting on the floor talking to a friend, 100 times better. If I'm laying back on the couch, 1,000 times better. And I've noticed that when I join Zoom calls, that I want to just lay on the couch and hold my phone or have my laptop and just be kicking back, or on my bed. And I look at these Zoom calls, and these are for things that help me figure out how to do all this online stuff for my podcast and my website. And I notice I'm the only one in my bed. And it's not like I'm in my bed because I can't get out of bed. It's just that's where it's comfortable, or laying on my couch is comfortable. And then I sit up straight to be with them, and I'm not as comfortable. And I just feel a little more anxious. So I thought maybe it helped to sit against the couch. So here I am. Thank you for letting me do whatever I do. I mean, it's my podcast, right? I can do whatever I want to do. But I just thought I should talk about this first, because maybe it'll help me so that I stop acting this way and stop feeling this way, and I can actually make that other episode. So this is it for right now. So I actually looked up what are some techniques. Well, first I've been learning about why ADHD amplifies fear, why that gets amplified maybe more for someone with ADHD than someone who doesn't have it. And maybe there are other conditions, especially if you have anxiety without ADHD. But with ADHD, what can cause your brain to amplify that fear? What can make it bigger than what reality is that we have emotional responses to a lot of things. I don't know that we have them for everything. And some people have fewer emotional responses, have a different level. But we have emotional responses to what's going on, whether it's a plan of something that we need to do or something we want to do. This is something I really want to do. I want to be here. I want to talk about this topic. I love to be on my podcast. But for whatever reason, whatever emotional response I might usually have of, are you ready for that? Are you sure? Or maybe you should get something else done. All of that questioning could be just processed like, yeah, you're fine. Go ahead and do it, or do something else first. It would be no big deal. But the longer I waited to do it, the bigger it got, and the emotional response grew. And emotional dysregulation is not being able to regulate that emotion, not being able to bring it back down to a manageable point where it's growing and growing. And dysregulation could actually be doing the opposite thing. It could be, it could be changing the emotions from super excitement to super sadness, or super anger to laughing. It could be that kind of dysregulation, but I'm talking about the dysregulation where it's just growing and you can't bring it back down. So that's something in the brain that could happen. And that's what I saw happening today. And the longer I waited, it wasn't like I felt overwhelmed, like, oh, I can't do that. I knew I couldn't, but I just kept having kind of that decision fatigue and the paralysis of, it wasn't that I wasn't doing anything. I just wasn't doing the thing that I wanted to do the most because it wasn't a distraction. There are so many things that we do with ADHD where we can name it and say, yeah, I was distracted, so that's why I didn't do it. Or I was overwhelmed by the idea, so I didn't do it. Or I was afraid because I've never done this before, it's new. None of those applied, but my brain could not calm this anxiety, this anxiousness I was feeling. And I've named it now. I know where it's coming from. And that anxiety or that fear is interfering with my ability to make a decision, my ability to just get myself to do something. And it just made it a lot harder to even regulate the emotion. And the fear is more from going to the doctor's office. I don't know what day it was when I made this podcast on Tuesday. I had a doctor's appointment and my blood pressure reading was higher. And honestly, if the woman, I don't know if she was a nurse or a physician's assistant or what, I'm very affected by other people's beings, their emotional state, or yeah, I don't even know if it was an emotional state. I'm affected by how they are. And I think if she had said, oh, this is high, let's do it again, which actually happened a week or two before when I had to go get a blood test. They said, oh, this is high. Let's give it a few minutes, the reassuring voice. Let's give it a few minutes and see if it goes down. We waited a few minutes. She was, nice and stuff. Did it again. Oh, it went down. I'll use that reading. So this woman, the woman on Tuesday, didn't respond that way. She was more of an alarmist. Oh, your blood pressure is really high. And like it's the end of the world. And I thought, oh, but you could always wait and do it a little bit later. Like you want to do it, so I said, yeah, that happened a week ago. So this is my calm response where the emotions hadn't kicked in yet. They didn't kick in until after I got home, where she said, where I said, oh, that happened last week when I got my blood test, but then she just waited a little bit and it went down. I also have a son who's a resident. He's a doctor right now. And he told me there's a thing called white coat syndrome, and that there are times that the first time I had a high blood pressure reading, which was last fall, it made me nervous when she said that. I thought, well, I've never had high blood pressure before. So I got worried about it. And then she did it a second time and she did it too tight and it hurt. So I said, that's hurting my arm. That's hurting my arm. So second thing. So first thing was like my worry, my fear, like, oh, that can't be good if it's high. Second thing was it hurt. So I'm tensing up from it hurting. And so she did it a third time and it did go down, but not to my normal level. And my son said, yeah, there's a white coat syndrome that sometimes people's blood pressure is higher because it's a scary situation. And that was my first time in that office. It was kind of scary. So anyway, so I knew that too. So that was my logical part. My logical part was, hey, a week ago this happened and they took it again. Second logical part was, oh, it could be white coat syndrome. But, obviously it could be something else too. But the second time she did it, she didn't say, oh, it went down. She just said, yeah, it went down, but not that much. And you still have high blood pressure. And I'm just laughing because I don't know. I just feel like people in positions like that should try to be more reassuring or something. But anyway, my doctor didn't seem to think much about it when she saw the second reading was the thing. So I forgot about it until yesterday. It's funny what can trigger things. Like my life was good. I mean, not, you know what I mean. Like nothing changed from walking out feeling good because my doctor felt good about it, or at least she didn't say anything about it. But the next day, when I get an email that says, your after visit summary is here, that's when I saw in red my blood pressure thing. So anyway, yeah. So I just thought, oh, so I started getting all scared and everything, and it was just lame. But it came up again today because now I've been testing my blood pressure at home, and and so I had a really good result after I got up, and then I'm reading like, what time of day do you do it? Like, so now I'm starting to worry about it. But then I thought, check it again, and it was higher, and it might have been after I took my medication, my stimulant. I don't know. It just built inside of me, and it got in the way of being able to do something I really wanted to do, which was this. I was able to quiet my mind by putting in some AirPods and a podcast and just doing some laundry and some cleaning, which is good. But I really wanted to be doing this, honestly. I'd much rather be doing this. Yeah. So I thought I'd talk about this because when I really recognized this anxiousness that you're feeling about the podcast is not about the podcast, because logically it wasn't, but I thought it was. I thought, why are you worried to do that? Why are you scared to do this? Just do it. You've done it before. This is episode 80, so I should be able to do it, right? But when I did that breathing practice, and the man's name's Max Strom, Maxstrom. I think I've mentioned him before, but if you go on YouTube, he has some videos on breathing techniques for anxiety or better sleep or different things like that. And so anyway, I did it, but the impatient part of my ADHD didn't finish it. I almost got there because I got to the point of where I recognized, oh, this is actually fear. And maybe a lot of anxiety comes from fear, but for me to understand, where's that fear coming from? Is there anything you can do about it? Can you change your reaction to it? Can you do something progressive to alleviate that fear? Not just an action like breathing, but whatever I'm afraid of, instead of feeling like I don't have any control in this situation. Oh no. And then monitoring my blood pressure every day. I could do things like look at the foods that can cause high blood pressure. And granted, it's not super high, but according to the woman who took my blood pressure, she was alarmed. So I want to get to the point where she would look at it and say, not only this is normal, but this is low. Because for a million years, I have 6 kids, so I've gone to the doctor a cajillion times, and they'd always do the blood pressure, and they'd always say, oh, you're 118 over. They'd always say these 2 numbers, and I'd usually say, I don't know what that means. Is that good? And they'd say, yeah, it's really good. And I go, okay. And there was never anything like that. And maybe that RSD of wanting to have the approval of somebody factored into her reaction. Like I should have just said, okay, like if that's how she reacts, if she's cold when she talks to me, that's okay. But it's not okay because I like to connect with people. So we all have our attachments to things, and one of mine is connecting with people. And ask my husband, I come back from experiences and say, I wish everybody enjoyed meeting people as much as I do, because it's really frustrating to go into a store or go to an office or something and just get stone faces from people. And I really do want to, I don't have to tell my life story. I'm not trying to do that. I just want to smile. I just want a connection. And actually the woman that took my blood pressure had to come back in and give me vaccines for pneumonia. I'm giving all my medical information, but pneumonia and what was the other one? Oh, tetanus. And somehow we found common ground as I talked to her, and she warmed up to me, but still left me with a little bit of emotional dysregulation afterwards. So yeah, and that was me just bringing that back in. It was, but why is it hard to get those emotions where we need them to be? It just is. It just is. We have emotional dysregulation along with our executive dysfunction. That is part of it, or at least it is for me. It might be for you too. You may also have the rejection sensitivity. Wait, I always say it wrong. Rejection sensitive dysphoria. I don't think I have it to the RSD point, but I have the rejection sensitivity for sure. I want to be friends with everyone. and I know that I can't be, and I know that not everyone's going to like me, but yeah, that plays into it too. Whew. So what else? Okay, so this is also interesting with ADHD, why you amplify fear. Because as I said, logically, I could look and say, okay, and I actually did throughout the day, look at what foods not to eat, look at what food to eat. Well, that caused stress too, because then you're starting to limit what you eat, and I'm already picky. I already don't like cooking stuff, so I just go, well, I don't feel like eating anything then. But I would eat a few things here and there. But yeah, so I did make some attempts to just move forward. Well, what can you control? But if you have time blindness in any way, it could be like, it's time to go. I'm just going to go put on my makeup for 5 seconds. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, how am I leaving so late? That's a time blindness that I'm finding I relate to. Another time blindness is things can feel more intense or urgent time-wise than maybe they really are. And you start to think, or like in this case, I might think, oh, like that might take forever, that I just make changes in what I eat, and then it makes a difference. I'm not looking at it realistically, and I should. So things may not be as urgent, as intense, time-wise, or even, just we might have that alarmist reaction for different reasons. And then also, if your memory isn't, if you have so many ideas coming in your mind, the rational part may not come in as evenly. You may not store the information. Like you might talk to a friend, which would have been a good idea. I didn't talk to anybody about this today. But you could talk to somebody and they'd say, well, don't you remember this happened to you once before and what you did was this? Or, they give you something that boosts your confidence. And often they're things that you already know, but you might not be recalling that. You might not even have that memory. Like, did that really happen? Like, you might not have the memory at all because you never stored it, or you just can't remember because your mind is swirling too much, so your memory isn't working as well. But yeah, so those are some reasons why fear can grow, and there are a lot of women I've met. Not that everything has to be within my circle, but there are a lot of women I've met and that I've read about online and who have been diagnosed with anxiety and not ADHD, and then later find out they have ADHD, treat the ADHD, and they either don't need the anxiety medication anymore, don't need as much, or just don't deal with it as bad as they used to. So anxiety is definitely related to ADHD, and sometimes treating the ADHD is what alleviates the anxiety, which is really great to know. I've never had anxiety like as a diagnosis or anything, but I'm finding it coming up as we tend to do. So what are some things you can do for anxiety? If it's stopping you from doing something, one is to not feed it by retreating. If you retreat from what you don't want to do, you're building this narrative in your mind that, yeah, that's true, that's true, that's true. And you think you can't do it. Like, I can't go up and do this right now because I'm just feeling too crazy inside. I can't possibly talk on a podcast about this because I can't focus on it because I'm feeling too crazy inside. The more I said that to myself, it got bigger. It got bigger. That idea got bigger. So sometimes just whatever it is that's scaring you to do, whether that fear comes from somewhere else or you have a new fear because that fear of something else is actually the deeper rooted thing. Physically moving, standing up, taking a step toward it, even just a tiny little action, like I'm just going to do this. Like, let's say I have to respond to somebody's email or text. I don't want to do it, but I'm just going to open the email. Or I'm just going to set a timer and get myself to do part of it, and then I can stop it. I've done that before when I work on, because I put so much pressure on myself sometimes. I don't know if it's pressure, but I don't know if you do this with texts or emails. Yeah, I guess it's my own pressure. Nobody else expects me to respond in the way that I want to respond, but I want to respond in a thorough way. So it's not even a response of, oh, I don't know if I say this, it might hurt their feelings, or am I going to say it in a way that offends them or whatever. That's a different category, but just the one of I can't do it unless it's complete. Then sometimes I do things like just do drafts, do a draft in the notes app where you're not going to accidentally send it part way and then think, oh, now I have to finish it. You're not going to overwhelm yourself with that, but you just do part of it, put it in a notes app, put it, I guess, just like in Google Doc. I don't know if you use Google Drive, but Google Docs are a great way to write an email because you won't accidentally send it. And I do have that feature on my Gmail where, I think it actually just has like a 5-second delay, 10-second delay, but it gives you a chance to cancel your send, which I've had to do before. But writing it in a doc is even nicer. For my newsletter, I've started doing that. It just takes the pressure off like that. I don't know, especially since my newsletter editing, the way that they do it in that newsletter format is really difficult. And a lot of times I delete stuff on accident and it drives me crazy. So anyway, it takes off some of the pressure. It takes off some of the fear. It takes off some of the anxiousness that you might be feeling about a process. And then just even saying, I'm doing it now. You just say that out loud. I'm doing it now. Just go see what happens. Just go see what happens. You don't have to do the whole thing. I've done that with my kids. Like, let's just start. Let's just start, see how far we get. And you're not even planning to do a tiny step, but you're just telling yourself, stand up. You can count to 3 if you want. You can say out loud, I'm just going to do this. And you do it. Because whatever's building in you that's saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, you can get a step toward that. And then just asking yourself if you want to. Don't have to do any of these. Honestly, when I read a lot of steps to things or read books about how to do this is the cure-all, I agree with maybe 2 of them. Or I only have 1 or 2 that I think, yeah, I could do that. Because you can't possibly, one, with ADHD, remember all of them. But they may not all apply to the way that your brain works. But you could try them and see, even if it doesn't sound great. But naming the fear out loud. So telling yourself, like if you just know, this feels scary because, or I'm afraid that, or I don't know why I'm afraid. But maybe if I lay down and just kind of think about it, I might be able to figure it out. And just, even if you don't even get to the root of it, you can make it a little less emotional. It gets from the emotional part of your brain to the thinking part of your brain. It becomes a little more analytical, and it doesn't have as big of a grasp on you emotionally. You can just kind of talk it out, like, I wonder if this is happening. As soon as I said that, this is probably what is happening from this stupid high blood pressure thing. And then you go, okay, well, then what can I do with that? What can I do with that? And maybe nothing instantly, maybe so, but I really should have gone outside for a walk, honestly. But it's good weather. I'm in Florida where it gets hot and humid, and I didn't grow up with that. I mean, we didn't live here till about 2 years ago. So I lived in California where we only got the humidity if it was cold, the foggy coastal Northwest kind of stuff. The humidity and the heat, and it never really got very hot where we lived either. But yeah, so it's cool weather this week. I should be out there, but I wanted to do this, so I'm glad I'm here. But also breathing techniques. There are a lot of them, and one is breathing in for 4 counts. And I always say counts instead of seconds because, who cares what the count is? But you just do, inhale for 4. You can hold for 4. It's a natural pause, as they say in yoga. They actually have 4 words in Sanskrit for the breathing. The 4 parts is the inhale, the natural pause, the exhale, and the natural pause. And each pause between the inhale and exhale is different than the one between the exhale and the inhale. Who knows why? Maybe I'll learn. I haven't gotten curious about that yet. But inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Like I said, I reject a lot of stuff. In all my years of doing yoga and teaching yoga, I've never taught that way. I don't like to hold my breath as long. So I usually will hold for maybe 2 or something and exhale or just observe the pause, just observe the natural pause. This is what I think is cool. So if you ever, like to swing on a swing set when you're little, if you swing really high, it might even happen when you're not swinging as high, but when you swing really high, it almost feels like there's like a pause in the air before it goes the other way. And then it kind of pauses. So you swing up in a little pause and swing down a little pause. I'm sure if I asked my son, who knows physics and things, I don't know if that's physics or not, he'd probably explain why. But that's what I think of with my breathing methods is more observe that natural pause. The only time I really control the pause or lengthen it out is with the alternate nostril breathing, which they need to think of another name besides. In Sanskrit, it's nadi, N-A-D-I. But nostril's just not a pretty word. But I will hold that longer. And I've read that you shouldn't hold it longer unless you've been doing it for a while. But I don't know. I guess I've worked my way up to it for calming the active part of the brain. I don't know if it calms. I guess that is the emotional part, huh? I don't know. It's just supposed to balance out the sides of the brain so you can fall asleep or you can relax. I usually use it for sleeping. But anyway, so yeah, you could choose a breathing technique, even just slowing your breathing. Go wider on the inhale, and a little pause because it's natural. And exhale. I usually like to exhale a little longer than the inhale because that's what I'm capable of doing. I think I just don't like to be told what to do because whenever I've done breathing in a class with a teacher telling me how long to hold it, I'm not relaxing. It doesn't always work with my body, and then I get tense, so I'm not happy anymore. But and I've heard about this. I don't think I've ever tried it. Have you ever tried it? So it's tuning in to all of your senses, so all 5 of your senses. So instead of letting this fear, this anxiety well up, you can just look and count. We're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 things that you can see. Notice those 5 things. 4 things you can touch. Gonna do that. Try to be quiet. 3 things you could hear. I actually did that one a little longer because I can't hear anything in here. If I go outside, I can do it. I can see, at least for me, that one would be more powerful. Because hearing things, especially if they're calm things, can be calming. And a lot of times there are sounds, especially if you're outside and not where cars are driving by really fast, there are sounds that you don't notice until you try to notice them. And I used to teach yoga to this family. It was so much fun. There were, I think, 3 children, the mom and the 3 children, and they homeschooled. And so she used to come to my classes, and I super loved her coming to my classes. But her kids were different ages. a teenage daughter and then a son and then a little son. And you could see the sibling stuff going on at times where they're kind of like bugging each other and stuff. And during Shavasana, which is when ideally you're laying there still, not making noise, not disturbing anybody else, and just able to relax. And now that I know about ADHD, definitely the youngest boy, I mean, I'm not, a doctor, but the youngest boy had ADHD. And so he would do things to bug his sister or just, be wiggly or disruptive or something. And having had a lot of kids myself and just always being quick on my feet with children, like, gotta switch gears here. I said to them that first Shavasana when I could see it was needed was to listen and count every sound, count in your mind every different sound that you hear. And afterwards, tell me how many that was. They were all so excited to do it. And he got really quiet because he had something to do. But I also think just listening to those sounds was calming for him. And it can be to me too. So last one is one thing you could taste. I wonder if they put the one at the end so that you're not eating too much. If you always had 5 things you can taste and then one thing you can see. But anyway, yeah, it's just a way to ground yourself. And speaking of grounding, I don't know if you've ever heard of, like, I don't know if it's called earth grounding or something, that being outside does connect you more electromagnetically with the earth. And people who do the grounding, the earthing, I think that's what it's called, it's earthing. You actually take off your shoes and socks and have your feet touch the sand, which doesn't sound as outlandish. If we're at the beach, we might do that anywhere. Our hands would touch the sand, not just on the beach towel or not with sandals on or, with the dirt or the tree or whatever. You're getting that from the earth up, which is kind of cool too. That's calming too. Not that I do it a lot, but I remember it, and it is nice to do. But anyway, last few things. Okay. Talk to yourself like a friend. Try to give yourself support. You will be much more rational if you talk to yourself like a friend than you will be if you're talking to yourself as yourself. and then the last thing is to do something with, like, even just standing or sitting that's like more powerful, like stand like Wonder Woman or the victory pose, the arms are up, like, yes. You could even say that, yes. Or just look in the mirror and smile. I do that a lot. I didn't think of it today because it usually makes me laugh. Like, I'll just smile like, oh yeah, this is so wonderful. And then I'll laugh because it's not always feeling wonderful at the moment, but that smile does make a change in your nervous system. That victory pose, we do that for a reason. We're opening in our hearts. Our worry, anxiety, is the shoulders coming in. So that's the opposite, is the arms going up. And then the power pose. I mean, we see that in the animal kingdom of puffing out your chest and showing I'm strong, I can do this. But that confidence could be signaling our nervous system. It could be signaling, it could be communicating with, yes, we've got this. So I think that's going to be it for today. I hope this is helpful to you. It's helpful for me. I think I need to drink more water too. I have been, but I'm just saying right now, I do feel better. I wouldn't say like 1,000% better or even 100% better. Maybe not even 10% better, but I do feel better than I did when I started. Sitting back is probably helpful. If I was like this, it'd be even better. I know those of you who are listening instead of watching, I hope it's not frustrating for you that I'm talking about what you see when you don't see it, but I was just leaning back. But thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And hopefully this will be the last time I feel like this when it's time to record. So I'm grateful that you are out there listening, it makes a difference for me. And I guess that's it. I'm gonna go. Bye.